Lord, will you eat with me? I don't need answers, all I need is to know that you care for me. Hear my plea, are you even listening? Lord, I will wrestle with your heart, but I won't let you go. You know I believe. Help my unbelief. Yet I will praise you. Yet I will sing of your name. Here in the shadows, here I will offer my praise. What's true in the light is still true in the dark. You're good and you're kind and you care for this heart. Lord, I believe that you weep with me.
Part the seas, Lord, make a way for me. Here in the midst of my lament, I have faith, yes, I still believe. You love me, your plans are to prosper me. You're working everything out for good, even when I can't see. You know I believe. Help my unbelief. Yet I will praise you. Yet I will sing of your name. Here in the shadows, here I will offer my praise. For what's true in the light is still true in the dark. You're good and you're kind and you care for this heart. Lord, I believe that you weep with me.
Turn my lament into a love song.
What's true in the light?
From this lament, raise up an anthem. Turn my lament into a love song.
Oh, I love you, Lord.
From this lament, raise up an anthem. Yet I will praise you, yet I will sing of your name. Here in the shadows, here I will offer my praise. For what's true in the light is still true in the dark. You're good and you're kind and you care for this heart. Lord, I believe that you weep with me.
Amen. Amen. Good morning. Well, it's my last sermon of 2019. Probably not. Test, test. There we go. So we're going to finish up the third angel's message. Imagine how embarrassing it would be if the media called you, said, hey, you're a Seventh-day Adventist, right? And they said, yep. So, well, I hear you guys are all about the three angels' message, and we have some questions for you. See, that could happen. When, what was that guy's name back in 2011 or 12, said the world was going to end in May? Harold Camping. Remember that? No? I remember because the media called me. They had some questions. And then they got to know me, so then they called me again when those snake got into some kid's room in New Brunswick and killed the kid. And the media called me and they said, we want to interview you. We want to know if you think that our fear of snakes has anything to do with the story of the Garden of Eden. When the media gets curious, they come calling. But I don't want you to know this because you're scared because the media is going to call you. I want you to know this because I want you to go to bed at night happy and at peace. I want you to wake up in the morning happy and at peace. Because this is good. It's good news. Now, do you know this story? Who is that? Or an artist version, anyways. Daniel in the lion's den. We're going to come back to that story. So open your Bibles this morning to Revelation 14. And I'm going to ask Lito to come up. I have a little interview with him to make a point. So Lito's somewhere in here. Where is he? Oh, there he is. Come on up. All right, Lito, what's your full name?
Ang ngalan ko si Lito Tanyada Pitsun.
And where are you originally from?
Nagaling ko sa Bacolod, Philippines.
Okay. What's your favorite food?
Paborito ko, spaghetti.
Oh, you got that one, didn't you? Let's see, what do you do for work?
Pardon me?
What do you do for work? What do you do?
Nag-aobra ko maintenance sa hotel.
All right, thank you very much. You did a good job. Jenna, what does he do for work? Why don't you know? Because what? Oh, if you'd been paying attention, you would have known? I don't think. He was speaking. He was using words. Words. We know words, right? But do we know all words? No, we don't. So he was using words that are original to him, familiar to him. He grew up with them, but many of you did not. Some of you did. Some of you understood them perfectly well. Words are only useful if you understand them and if you know what they mean. It's kind of come and gone in Adventism and in other Christian churches that take the Bible seriously, this war over the Bible. Which translation is better, blah, blah, blah. At the end of the day, no matter what English Bible you use, it is a translation. And anybody who knows more than one language knows that translating is not something that's simple. That every word in a particular language has not just its core meaning, but nuances depending on how you use it and all the rest of it. For example, I was explaining to some of our Filipino ladies in the kitchen one day that I asked them how they were doing. They said, fine. I said, what's wrong? Well, nothing's wrong. We're good. I said, well, if a woman in our culture says she's fine, she's usually not. And it's usually your fault. How you doing, honey? I'm fine. Really? So today we're going to go through Revelation 14, verse 12. And we're going to look at the words. Okay? So here is of the saints, here are those who and have the... Some translations don't say that though. Some translations say, here is the endurance of the saints. Some translations say, this calls for patient endurance on the part of the saints. And the reason for all the different translations in English is because the Greek is a nuanced word. It's a complicated word. It's not a word that we have a direct translation for in English. That's why translating is difficult. Have you ever noticed, being Canadian, that all your cereal boxes and all your food that you buy has the ingredients in English and the ingredients in French and the explanation in English and the explanation in French? And have you ever noticed that the English, if it's one line, the French is 3. If the English is 2 lines, the French is 6. And that's because English has a large vocabulary. French has a small vocabulary. They don't have a lot of direct words for things, so they describe them. And it takes longer to describe something than it does to just use a word for it. Here is what did I do with it? So there's the 3 angels' messages flying around the world. They should be. They're not as much as they could be, but they will, because Jesus is going to get it done, because he's Jesus. So here's the 3 messages in a nutshell. Number 1, God has good news. Number 2, Satan's grip on the world is over. And number 3, all who believe the first 2 are soon going home. So if you believe that God has good news, and you believe that Satan's grip on the planet is over, and you hold on to that belief, you're going to go home. Now, if you're ADHD and that's as much as you can handle, that's the sermon in a nutshell. You can go back to sleep or do whatever it is you need to do to... For the rest of you who can handle more, we're going to continue. Here is a call for the endurance of the saints, those who keep the commandments of God and their faith in Jesus. And I heard this voice from heaven saying, write this, blessed are the dead who die in the Lord from now on. Blessed indeed, says the Spirit, that they may rest from their labors, for their deeds follow them. We must first define some words. So we're going to define 5 words today. Patience, saints, keep, commandments, and faith. Now I know that's way more points than I usually do, so buckle up, brace yourself, we can do this. Patience, saints, keep, commandments, and faith. Patience, or endurance. The Greek word is hypomone. It comes from 2 words, hypo, which means under, and meno, which means remain or endure. Properly remaining under, endurance, steadfastness, especially as God enables the believer to remain under the challenges he faces in life. The Bible says in Hebrews chapter 12, verse 3, that Jesus, for the joy that was set before him, endured the cross, despising its shame, and is sat down at the right hand of the Father. Jesus endured under. What load was he enduring? All of those things and more. Loneliness, being misunderstood, the weight of his own people rejecting him, thinking him an imposter. He endured under all kinds of things. But he didn't quit. Why? See, you would have quit. I would have quit. We would have quit. Peter said, I won't quit. But he did. No one will ever carry what Jesus carried. Not even close. And he endured under. Why? I already told you the answer. It's in the Bible. Who for the... It's okay to say joy in the Adventist church. Who for the... Joy. Jesus could see beyond what he was enduring. It was that he could see beyond that kept him going. Someday I'm going to sit down at my Father's banquet table and I'm going to have my kids with me, and anything Satan can throw at me between now and then is more than worth it. He endured for the joy. For the joy. And the Bible says this calls for enduring under on the part of we're going to go through some stuff. There are some TV preachers who tell you what you want to hear, that everything's going to be good, you're going to make more money, and everything's going to be blessed if you just do a few things that they tell you to do. But Jesus says, you follow me, you're going to endure under. Take up your cross and follow me. All right, that's enduring under. That's patience. Saints. We live in a culture that has adopted the idea that saints are some kind of super Christians that are a level or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 above us. If you want to get over that real quick, read 1st and 2nd Corinthians. Because Paul addresses both of that church in both letters as to the saints in Corinth. And then you go on and read what they were like. Have you read those letters lately? They would fit better on Jerry Springer. You remember that guy? Than they would under the category of saints. Paul calls them saints not because of what they are, but because of who they believe in. Saints, hagios, properly different, unlike, otherness, holy for the believer, means likeness of nature with the Lord because different from the world. Now that's an interpretation of the word. That's not what it actually means. It just means, it comes from the word that means they are different. They're different. Do you know what church means in Greek? Ecclesia, do you know what it means? It just means the called out ones. So Jesus says to a crowd, hey, you come and follow me. Some came and some stayed. The ones who came were the ecclesia, the called out ones. It doesn't mean they're better. It doesn't mean their temper immediately went away. It doesn't mean they immediately became kind or in a good mood all the time. It just means they followed Jesus. It didn't mean they ran around doing miracles or they were some kind of super Christian. It just meant they were following Jesus. They were different. Because the rest of everybody, they just kept doing their traditions and whatever it was they were doing before. But some said, no, I believe in this guy. I'm following him. Different. That's all it means. Different. This calls for enduring under on the part of the different ones. You know why? Because the world's going to come to a point where everyone's going to have to agree, and if you don't agree, you're going to be in trouble. And the ones who don't agree are the ones who are following Jesus. They're the different ones. And you're going to have to endure under. If you came from a Catholic background, you especially have a weird idea of what saints are. How do I back up? They're not super Christians. They're just Christians. Keep. This is from the word tereo, a guard. Literally, it comes from the word that means a guard, a soldier, a person who stands guard. Properly maintain, preserve, figuratively, spiritually guard, watch, keep intact. It does not mean obey. It means guard or preserve. There are lots of religions that tell you to obey, but they don't know what they're obeying or who they're obeying. It's more important to keep, guard, preserve what God has said. Right? Commandments. Here's an interesting one. You think you know what it means, right? Entole. It's a feminine noun. Derived from two words, in and telos, which means reach the end or the consummation, properly in the end, focusing on the end result of a command. Now, when someone gives an order, that's a command. The Greek has a word for that. It's not this word. When Jesus commanded the evil spirits to come out of people, he didn't say tereo. He didn't tereo them out. He ordered them out. You leave. You're done. This is not this word. This word has the end in mind. You're doing this because this will happen. When God was on Mount Sinai and he spoke to the people, he was describing the end result. He was describing the consummation. You will have no other gods before you when I'm done. You will not make idols anymore when I'm finished what I'm doing. You will no longer take my name in vain when I'm done. I brought you out of Egypt. I'm going to bring Egypt out of you. That's what he was saying. But they took it as, well, you just tell us what to do and we'll do it. If you want to think about something that might blow your mind a little bit, God gave the first set of commandments, the first testimony from Sinai. He spoke it, the mountain shook, there was fire and smoke, and the people trembled. And then Moses went up and he wrote it down for Moses on 2 tablets of stone. And Moses came down the mountain with those 2 tablets of stone. He saw what the people were doing. They were worshiping around a golden calf. They had already broken all of it before he even had a chance to deliver it. And in Moses' mind, the document meant, you do this and I'll do this. So he smashed it because they obviously already failed. So he smashed it and it was over. In Moses' mind, it was completely done. And God came to him. When Adam and Eve chose from the wrong tree, they figured, it's over, we're cooked, and they went hiding, and Jesus came after them. When Gideon was hiding, threshing wheat in the winepress and figured, we're done as a people, God came to him. God always comes to us before we go to him. So Moses smashes it. God says, hey, Moses, I'm not done. Come back up the mountain. Oh, no, forget it. We're done. No, I'm not done. You come back up the mountain. He came back up the mountain and he gave him a new set. Did you know it's in Deuteronomy 5? Did you know it doesn't match the first one? Isn't it strange that there's a version 2.0, but when we quote them, we quote version 1.0. Isn't that kind of backwards? Do you know why that is? Because Satan doesn't want you to understand version 2.0. In the first set, God said, I am the Lord your God who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. You shall have no other gods before me. We've taken the first set. We've cut the introduction off completely. We don't need that. It's not important. Just get to the list of things we need to do. Don't take my name in vain, blah, 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 blah. Well, that part was important. So when God did version 2.0, he said, I am the Lord your God who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. You shall have no other gods before me. On. Observe the Sabbath day, he said in the second version. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, blah, 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 blah. And then he said, do this because you were slaves in the land of Egypt, and I delivered you with a mighty hand and with an outstretched arm. He says, you're going to cut it off the beginning? No problem. You cut it off the beginning. I'm going to stick it right back in the middle. Because it's the most important point in the whole document. I took you out of Egypt, and I will take Egypt out of you. I'll take it out. I will take it out. How many of you have been in the church long enough that you figure you should be a better person than you are? Didn't Abraham and Sarah figure they should have had a kid already? Don't you think they figured they tried enough times and spent enough years they should have had one? Wasn't the time yet. It's not our job to become what God promised to do for us and in us. It's our job to believe that God will do what God says he will do, no matter how unlikely it may appear. You see, the people in Revelation 14:12, they are enduring under what this world is, believing that it won't always be this way. And the truth is, listen to me, the closer we get to the end, the more unlikely it's going to appear that Jesus will ever win. Did you catch me? Yeah. The closer we get to the end, it's not going to get, ooh, he's here. it's going to seem he's forgotten us. In fact, if you want to know what Ellen White, how she describes, she says, all of your senses will tell you that God is no more. All of them. Now think about Daniel. He's a good guy, right? In fact, when we want to get all, some humans are good, we hold up Daniel as one of the good guys. It was a little easy for him to be good because he was a eunuch. If you don't know what that means, look it up. Daniel was an old man when the Medes and Persians destroyed Babylon. But Darius and Cyrus, they knew him by reputation, and they wanted him in their government because they knew with Daniel comes the blessing of the Most High God. So they put him in. Long past retirement, he's one of the top guys in the whole country. And his co-workers hated it. Get that old man who doesn't belong to our people out of here. So they hired private investigators to dig and dig and dig to try and find something to discredit him so they could give him the boot. Couldn't find anything. I've often thought about that. If they came after me, what would they find? Couldn't find anything. So finally they sat together and they chatted. The only thing that Daniel has a weakness with is his God. If we can find some way to cross him and his God and screw him up that way, we'll have him. So they came up with a plan. They went to the king, and they appealed to the king's pride. Be careful when people come to you appealing to your pride. It usually isn't for any good reason. He said, hey, king, there's no king like you. We have a brilliant idea. For the next 30 days, across your realm, people worship God, they worship Vishnu, they worship all kinds of nonsense. But for the next 30 days, let's have no one worship anyone but you. I can handle that. Let's do it. The Medes and Persians had a tradition that nobody broke. Once they wrote a law, you couldn't change it. The king couldn't change it. The government couldn't change it. Nobody could change it. So for 30 days, no one was to worship anyone but the king as God. What do you think Daniel did? He endured under. That's what he did. He said, I can't control what they do and what they decide, but I can control what I do and what I decide. And he threw his windows open, he got down on his knees, and he kept praying. He didn't know what was going to happen next. He had no way of knowing. Would the king close his wink at him? Would he brush it off? What would he do? He had no idea. Then the guards came. That word that we just looked at. The guards. And they took him. Do you think he was praying on the way? I think he was. God didn't answer. They got to the lion's den. You think he was praying? Oh, I think he was. God didn't answer. They opened the lion's den. He could hear the lions. I think he was praying more. God didn't answer. They dropped him into the pit, praying all the way down. God didn't answer. Ellen White says, at the end of time, every single one of us, personally and alone between us and God, will come to the point where it feels like every sense tells us that God is not listening. My God, why have you forsaken me? We're an interesting lot, humans. We're far more selfish than we would like to admit. We can drive to work and we can listen to the radio about somebody who died somewhere, and we can be singing praises to Jesus the whole day through. It doesn't really bother us a bit. I mean, it's too bad that it happened, but it happens, right? But when the person who dies is somebody that you love, suddenly it's a whole different story. And where is God? When Jesus prayed in Gethsemane, where was God? You can read it. Jesus prayed 3 times. God didn't say one word. He didn't even send a text to say, I got your message. Nothing. Nothing. And Jesus endured under. Why? For the joy. For the joy. It's not always going to be this way. Better days are coming. God is concerned with the end result. And the people of God are concerned with the end result. They guard it. They preserve it. Our God will come because He said He will, and I don't feel it, and I don't sense it, and all your scientific stuff says it's never going to happen, and you mock me, and you whatever. I don't care what you say. He said it. I believe it. He's coming. That's the end result. Now, faith comes from the Greek word pistis, pitho, persuade, or be persuaded. Properly persuasion, be persuaded, come to trust, faith. Faith is always a gift from and never something that can be produced by. Oh, backwards. Faith is the of things, the evidence of things. What happened the day Jesus died? Lots of things happened. There was an earthquake. There was darkness. Couldn't see anything. Ever been really in the dark? Like, I mean in the dark. I don't mean darkish, I mean dark. Like when you go like this and you can't see your hand. Ever been in that kind of dark? So my sister-in-law, she's from Barbados originally, and then via New York City. So she's not used to the darkness, because New York never sleeps. Tracy and I, when we were in Nova Scotia, we built a house on a private road in Mount Uniacke, about half an hour out of Halifax, kind of on the edge of civilization. And for the first while we were there was no streetlights. I wish they would have kept it that way. I liked it better. She came out to visit one night in the dark. She comes in the house with this kind of scared look on her face. She says, "How do you live here? It's terrifying." I said, "Well, it's not as terrifying as sirens and gunshots." Darkness. When you cannot see. That's darkness. Catherine knows what darkness is. She lives in it every day. Darkness. There is a darkness worse than not seeing. There is the darkness of feeling like God has forgotten your name. And those who are His will someday, somehow pass through that darkness. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, because by faith I know my God is with me. Not by sight, not by feeling, by faith. So let's review. Patience, enduring under whatever pressures and circumstances may come. Saints, any person, high or low, known or unknown, who has become one of the called out ones. Keep means guard or preserve. Commandments, what Jesus has said will happen in the end. Faith, persuaded by and confident in all that Jesus has told us. So here's the third angel's message as it relates to those who choose Jesus. So we're going to do a little bit of a Dan's version. Here is how the believers at the end will endure under whatever comes their way. They will preserve the story Jesus shared with them through his testimony and all other means. They will guard the faith he has given them at any cost. That's the sum of the third angel's message. When one day Jesus was up on the mountain, kind of like Moses, and a father came with his sick boy down in the valley. Came to the disciples, the 9 who were down there, and they couldn't do anything. I don't know how much it cost him to get there that day. I don't know how far he traveled or how much he invested. But when he finally got to where Jesus was supposed to be, Jesus was gone. And the people that were supposed to be his people couldn't do anything. And in the midst of that squabble and tension, Jesus comes back down the mountain. He comes in the middle of that angst. What's the problem? Well, Jesus, they brought this boy. His father's here. We've done everything you've told us how to do. We got nothing. Let's bring the boy to me. Father comes. He says, Jesus, if you can do anything. If? Don't you believe? Yeah, I do. But help my unbelief. See, the truth is, we're here today because we kind of sort of believe. But we kind of sort of get panicked when we call and he doesn't answer. We kind of sort of panic when we come to the church, the people that are supposed to be his people, and we ask them for help and they can't do anything. We kind of sort of panic. And then when we finally wind our way through all that and get to Jesus, we say, Jesus, if you can help me, if I believe, help my unbelief. You know, Jesus doesn't want to hear about your brilliant faith. What he wants you to do is put your unbelief on the table. Say, Jesus, I want to believe in you. I'm here because I want to believe in you. But I got some doubts. What happened after that? How many of you plan to be around the table in heaven when Jesus sits down to enjoy the joy that he endured under to get to? How many of you plan to be there? If you're going to be there, it's going to be because you came to the place where you put your doubts and your unbelief on the table and said, God, this is me in all of my unglory. The rest is up to you. And he'll say, don't worry about it, son. Don't worry about it, daughter. You're the clay. I'm the potter. What I have begun in you, I will be faithful to complete.